It was the 20th of January, 2025, a date forever etched into the hearts of millions. The inauguration of Donald Trump as the 47th President of the United States was a spectacle unlike any other. The world watched with bated breath, but amidst the grandeur, it was Barron Trump who stole the show. At just 18, Barron stood tall, poised, and remarkably composed, his presence radiating a quiet strength. His calm demeanor was almost surreal, drawing the gaze of every onlooker. As Donald Trump took his oath, the cameras shifted to Barron, who, with a serene smile, exchanged glances with his father. The crowd whispered not about the president, but about his youngest son. No longer a child, Barron exuded the aura of someone destined for greatness. By the end of the ceremony, social media was ablaze. Headlines like "Barron Trump, the next president?" flooded the internet. People couldn't help but wonder, how could someone so young command such attention without uttering a single word? This marked the beginning of a conversation that would shape the narrative for years to come. Little did they know, Barron's extraordinary journey to the hearts of millions had only just begun. Barron's quiet composure wasn't just a product of good upbringing. It was backed by an intellect few could rival. With an IQ of 170, his brilliance was undeniable. By the age of 12, he had already mastered 4 languages: Slovenian, French, Italian, and German, effortlessly switching between them at public events, leaving audiences stunned. But it was his talent for chess that truly set him apart. At 14, Barron defeated a grandmaster in a match described as nothing short of genius. News outlets hailed him as a modern-day prodigy, but for Barron, it was never about fame. It was about the challenge, the strategy, and the art of outthinking his opponent. As Barron stood beside his father on Inauguration Day, the world marveled at how his brilliance shone in silence. He didn't need speeches or grandeur. His intellect was his greatest weapon, and it was clear to all that he was no ordinary teenager. Even his security detail, who accompanied him everywhere, admired the young man's humility. "He's wise beyond his years," one of them admitted. The world was starting to believe that Barron Trump might one day be remembered not just for his father's legacy, but for his own. What made Barron truly remarkable wasn't just his intellect or his talents, but his compassion. Unlike the often brash demeanor of his father, Barron was soft-spoken, choosing his words with care. He once spent hours comforting a young fan with autism who had come to meet him at an event. Stories like these spread like wildfire, painting a picture of a young man deeply empathetic to those around him. On Inauguration Day, this empathy was evident. As the ceremony ended, a child in the crowd dropped her flag and began to cry. Without hesitation, Barron stepped down from the platform, picked up the flag, and handed it to the girl, kneeling to console her. The moment was caught on camera and went viral within minutes. "Barron Trump has the heart of a true leader," one commentator noted. For millions of Americans watching, it was hard to disagree. This act, though small, became a defining moment, a glimpse into the kind of leader Barron might one day become. Would his brilliance and compassion pave the way for the highest office in the land? The world could only wonder. As the Trump family stood on the grand stage after Donald Trump's oath of office, the crowd erupted into cheers. Flags waved, cameras flashed, and the world seemed to celebrate a monumental moment. Yet, amidst the grandeur, Barron Trump stood apart, not physically, but emotionally. His calm, commanding presence was undeniable. Just as the national anthem began, something unexpected happened. An elderly war veteran seated near the front stumbled while attempting to stand in respect. Before anyone could react, Barron moved swiftly, disregarding protocol. He descended the steps, helped the man to his feet, and supported him until the anthem concluded. The crowd fell silent, moved by his simple act of kindness. Some wiped tears as they watched the towering teenager show a humility and grace far beyond his years. Cameras zoomed in on Barron's face, capturing the sincerity in his expression. Social media exploded. "Future President," one tweet read, garnering millions of likes. For those watching at home, it was a moment of revelation. Barron Trump wasn't just intelligent or talented. He had a heart that could connect deeply with people. And in that moment, a leader was born. As the inauguration celebrations continued, stories of Barron's genius began circulating again. Interviews with teachers, mentors, and even childhood friends painted a picture of a boy who was always extraordinary. At just 8 years old, Barron mastered Slovenian, a language tied deeply to his mother's heritage. He didn't stop there, challenging himself to learn French, Italian, and German by the time he was 12. His mother, Melania, often joked that Barron could negotiate in more languages than most world leaders, but it was his love for chess that truly showcased his brilliance. At 10, Barron stunned the world by defeating a renowned grandmaster in a game lasting over 5 hours. His strategic thinking was unmatched, and his ability to anticipate multiple moves ahead earned him the nickname the Chess King in global media. Even as a child, Barron was grounded. He never sought the spotlight despite his natural gifts. Instead, he focused on self-improvement, driven by a quiet determination to be better. As the world watched the young man stand beside his father on this historic day, they saw not just a Trump heir, but a young prodigy with the potential to shape the future of the nation. The inauguration day continued with a lavish ball in the evening. While the spotlight shone on Donald and Melania Trump, it was Barron who left the most lasting impression. Dressed impeccably, he mingled with guests, showing a level of maturity that astonished everyone. When asked by a journalist about his future plans, Barron responded with a humility that left the room silent. "For now, my focus is on supporting my father and learning from him. Leadership isn't about titles, it's about service." His words, spoken so sincerely, resonated deeply. Tears welled in the eyes of many as they realized they were witnessing not just a boy growing into a man, but a leader being forged in real time. A moment of pure emotion came when Barron approached a young girl in a wheelchair who had been invited to the ball. Kneeling beside her, he spoke softly, ensuring she felt included. Her smile lit up the room, and for many, it was the most touching moment of the night. By the end of the evening, the question lingered. Was Barron Trump destined for the presidency? For millions, the answer was already clear. The inauguration day had drawn to a close, but for Barron Trump, it was far from over. As the family returned to the White House, the streets of Washington buzzed with activity. Barron, flanked by his security team, stood quietly on the balcony, observing the crowds below. Suddenly, one of his guards received a report of a commotion near the gates. A distressed mother was shouting for help, her child clinging to her. Despite protocol, Barron insisted on going to see what was happening. His guards hesitated but relented, knowing the young man's resolve. When Barron arrived at the scene, he saw the mother sobbing. Her child, a boy no older than 6, had lost his wheelchair in the crowd. Barron knelt beside the boy, reassuring him. "It's okay. We'll fix this," he said gently. Moments later, he instructed his guards to retrieve a wheelchair from the White House's medical supplies. As the boy was seated in the new chair, his tearful thanks melted everyone's hearts. The moment was caught on a passerby's phone and went viral overnight. He didn't just help the boy, he gave him dignity, a reporter later wrote. Inside the White House that evening, Melania Trump watched her youngest son with pride. As Barron recounted the story of helping the boy, Melania placed a hand on his shoulder. "You know," she began, "true leadership isn't about power, it's about how you use it to uplift others." Barron nodded, absorbing every word. He had always looked up to his mother, not just for her grace but for her wisdom. Growing up, she had taught him Slovenian, ensuring he connected with his roots. She emphasized discipline, kindness, and the value of humility. "Do you remember what I told you when you first learned to play chess?" Melania asked. "To think beyond the next move," Barron replied. "Exactly," she said. "That applies to life too. You'll face challenges, but if you think ahead and stay true to your values, you'll always find the right path." As Melania embraced her son, the moment was tender and raw. It reminded the world of the bond between a mother and her child, and how that bond could shape a leader destined to inspire millions. Later that night, Barron retreated to his private study, where his chessboard awaited him. The pieces gleamed under the soft light, and for a moment, he allowed himself to get lost in the game. Each piece symbolized a role he had to play: pawn, knight, king. His father's presidency was the current match, but deep down, Barron knew his turn might come sooner than anyone imagined. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was one of his guards. "Sir, There's a gift for you from the boy you helped earlier." Barron opened the box to find a simple drawing of him, kneeling beside the child with the words, "Thank you for being my hero." Tears welled in his eyes as he held the drawing close. For Barron, it wasn't about recognition. It was about making an impact. That night, as he stared at the chessboard, he realized that life was more than a game. It was a series of choices, each one shaping the future. In that quiet moment, Barron Trump made a promise to himself. He would continue to serve others, no matter what it took. As Barron prepared to wind down after an emotional day, a White House aide handed him a letter. "This came for you, sir," the aide said with a gentle smile. Barron opened it to find a handwritten note from a retired schoolteacher in Kansas. The letter spoke of her late husband, a chess enthusiast, who had always admired Barron's skill. "He would have loved to see you play," the letter read. "You remind me of him, strategic, thoughtful, and kind. If he were here, he'd say, Barron Trump isn't just playing chess, he's building a brighter future for everyone." Tears welled up in Barron's eyes as he folded the letter. He couldn't stop thinking about the people who believed in him, people he had never met, but who saw in him a spark of hope. He walked to his study, the weight of responsibility heavy but welcome. Sitting down, he began jotting his thoughts into a journal, a practice his mother had encouraged. Tonight's entry was simple. "A leader is only as strong as the people he serves. I will serve with all my heart." The night deepened, but Barron felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just his story, it was theirs. The following morning, the White House was abuzz with post-inauguration meetings. As Barron passed through the halls, he overheard whispers about his composure during the ceremony. "He's so much like his father," one staffer said. Barron paused. He admired his father's resilience, but often felt overshadowed by his towering legacy. It wasn't the pressure to emulate Donald Trump. It was the desire to carve his own path. Later that afternoon, Barron joined his father in the Oval Office. Donald Trump was reviewing policies, his presence as commanding as ever. "How are you holding up, son?" he asked, looking up from his desk. "I'm fine," Barron replied, his voice steady. "Just thinking about what's next." Donald leaned back, studying his son. "You know, when I was your age, I never imagined I'd be here. But life has a way of pushing us toward our destiny." Barron nodded, absorbing the weight of his father's words. This was more than a family legacy. It was a calling. As he left the room, Barron felt a mix of fear and determination. He wasn't just walking in his father's shadow. He was stepping into his own light. That evening, Barron found himself back at his chessboard. The game had always been a metaphor for his life, a balance of strategy, patience, and risk. He placed the pieces carefully, envisioning the moves ahead. As he did, memories flooded back. His first chess match at age 6, the thrill of beating a grandmaster, and the countless hours spent refining his craft. But tonight, the board felt different. The stakes were no longer personal victories, but the hopes of millions. Every pawn, knight, and queen symbolized the challenges and allies he would face in life. As he contemplated his next move, Barron's mother entered the room. Melania watched quietly before placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're thinking too hard," she said gently. Barron looked up, smiling. "Sometimes it feels like the whole world is watching, Mom." "They are," Melania replied. "But remember, they're not watching to see you fail. They're watching because they believe in you." Those words stayed with Barron as he moved his queen into position. Life was unpredictable, but one thing was certain. Barron Trump was ready to face it with grace, wisdom, and heart. The day after Donald Trump's inauguration as the 47th President of the United States, the media was abuzz with headlines not just about the president, but about Barron Trump, the rising star of the Trump dynasty. "The next Trump president," one headline read. Photos of Barron, tall and poised, circulated online. Barron wasn't one to bask in the spotlight, but the attention humbled him. One particular photo, capturing him helping a young girl who tripped on the inaugural stage, went viral. People saw not just a future leader, but a compassionate young man. Later that evening, Barron scrolled through messages on social media. Among the praise and curiosity, one comment stood out. "Barron, you give me hope for my son. He struggles with feeling different because he's smarter than his peers. Seeing you thrive makes me believe he can too." Barron stared at the screen, tears forming. He realized his journey wasn't just about personal growth. It was about inspiring others. This wasn't a burden. It was a gift. He whispered a silent promise. If the world believes in me, I'll do everything to make them proud. Amid the glowing praise, there were shadows of doubt. A political analyst's article raised the question, does Barron Trump want this life? Or is he simply following his family's legacy? Barron read the article in silence, feeling a knot form in his stomach. He'd always admired his father, but his dreams often seemed overshadowed by expectations. Could he forge his own path while carrying the weight of his name? That evening, Melania found him sitting alone in the family quarters. She sat beside him, her presence calming. "You're quiet tonight," she said gently. "Do you think people will ever see me for who I am? Not just as a Trump?" Barron asked, his voice trembling. Melania placed a hand on his cheek. "Barron, people see you for your heart, your intellect, and your kindness. You're not just my son, you're someone special to the world. Don't let anyone's doubts cloud your light." Her words resonated deeply. Barron realized that his journey wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving to himself that he could rise above the noise. The next day, Barron was invited to a high-profile event, a charity chess match benefiting underprivileged children. The room buzzed with excitement as cameras flashed, capturing Barron's every move. He sat across from a 12-year-old prodigy who trembled with both nerves and excitement. "Don't worry," Barron said with a warm smile. "This is just for fun." The match began, and as the pieces moved across the board, Barron's mind sharpened. But he wasn't playing to win, he was playing to inspire. When the young boy made a brilliant move, Barron grinned. "That's incredible, you're a natural." The boy's confidence grew with every turn, and the match ended in a draw. The crowd erupted in applause, but the true victory was the boy's smile. After the event, Barron spoke to the attendees. "Chess teaches us that every piece matters, no matter how small. The same is true for all of us. Together, we can make a difference." As he left the stage, a wave of emotion washed over the audience. They didn't just see a young man with promise. They saw a leader who could unite hearts. The sun dipped low on the horizon as Barron sat quietly in his room, the grandeur of the White House surrounding him. Outside, the world celebrated his father's historic return to the presidency, but Barron's heart was heavy. He stared at the polished chessboard on his desk, each piece reminding him of the expectations placed upon him. The inauguration had thrust Barron into a spotlight brighter than ever before. Social media buzzed with predictions about his future. "The next Trump president," read one headline. Another declared, "Barron Trump, America's future leader." Barron wasn't sure how to feel. The praise was flattering, but it also felt like a weight pressing down on him. "Am I just a reflection of my family's name?" he whispered to himself. As if sensing his unease, Melania walked in, her calm presence a balm to his restless mind. She sat beside him and gently took his hand. "Barron, being a Trump isn't about living up to others' expectations. It's about being the best version of yourself." Her words planted a seed of hope in his heart. For the first time, he saw his potential not as a burden but as an opportunity to make a difference. Later that evening, Barron attended a formal dinner held in the White House. The room was filled with dignitaries, scholars, and innovators from across the world. While most eyes were on his father, Barron quietly observed from his seat, absorbing the conversations around him. As dessert was served, an elderly professor approached Barron. "Young man," he said with a smile, "I hear you're quite the chess player." Barron nodded humbly. "I enjoy the game. It teaches you how to think ahead." The professor's eyes sparkled. "Exactly. It's not just a game. It's a metaphor for leadership. Every move you make impacts others, and the goal is always the greater good." The professor's words struck a chord with Barron. For the rest of the evening, they discussed strategy, leadership, and the responsibility of making decisions that